There is a growing body of data that shows that human beings can be exquisitely sensitive to the impact of electromagnetic fields and various radio frequencies as they impact the cells and the tissues of their body. There's one very simple experiment that was done where mice or rats were put into a cage, and a single coil of electrical wire was put at the bottom underneath the cage, which generated a magnetic field. And they basically were fed in this cage and they lived in this cage, and I believe the time frame was about a year, after which the researchers reported that the males had become sterile, just from the magnetic field impacting on their endocrine system and their testes. In human subjects and many of my patients, they will report that they're reactive to different circumstances in which magnetic fields come into play. One very profound case was a woman in northern Arizona who lived near Sholo and worked in the emergency communications center for the emergency medical services system. And one day she was sitting at her desk and she started to feel a burning sensation in her scalp. And it became very, very severe. And she went to the emergency room and she was diagnosed with a second-degree burn of her scalp. It was not clear what it was that caused it, but she did come down to the toxicology clinic and we explored what had happened, and I looked at the records from the emergency room and it was clear that she had developed second-degree burns just sitting in her chair at work in this building. She thought and said, I think this is because of the microwaves that are, involved in transmitting all of the various messages. And I thought about it and I said, well, maybe, but the microwaves were rather weak in their force. And what it turned out to be was that there were two very large transformers sitting outside of the building in the back part of the lot. And one of those had gone awry and was generating huge fields of magnetic energy. It turns out that the scalp is a location in which 20% of the blood flow flows. It's part of being a radiator. Your hair, your scalp, it controls temperature, etc. So what did the blood flow have to do with it? Well, iron, when exposed to various magnetic frequencies, resonates. It's kind of like if you strike a chord on a piano and you're holding a violin, the A string or another string will start to vibrate. In this case, the molecules in the hemoglobin were vibrating and generating heat, and it burned her scalp. There are other situations where people will report to me that when they handle certain types of laptops and computers and be around electronic equipment or telephones, that they feel ill or they have really adverse effects. One of the things that happens when people are suffering from cumulative organic chemical hypertoxicity and they're loaded with their toxins is that there is endocrine disruption going on. And 52% of our patients suffer from drops in their antidiuretic hormone levels. Antidiuretic hormone is a hormone that allows us to hold on to what's called free water. And when you don't have enough antidiuretic hormone, the water spills, and people report urinary urgency and frequency, and they really pee frequently through the day. And they drink a lot because they're chronically dehydrated. We measure something called the serum osmolality, which is a measure of the amount of solutes that are in the solution of our blood. And In patients with low antidiuretic hormone, because they cannot hold on to the water, the concentration of those solutes goes often well above normal. Distilled water does not conduct electricity. You have to put something in it, a salt or something, that will carry the electrons through the water medium from one electrode to another. When you are hyper-concentrated in your fluids, you literally become a superconductor. Richie Shoemaker describes it as people experiencing very frequent static electrical shocks, and that is one of the phenomena that we hear. But the other thing is that you truly become a superconductor, and now the electromagnetic fields around you become very prominent and do affect your physiology in many ways. It is my belief that that is one of the primary mechanisms through which people will become sensitive to electromagnetic fields and forces. And when they report this, it is quite real. It is not in their head. It is actually a physiologic phenomenon that is occurring, and they can become quite symptomatic when that is going on.